Yes.
Opening of the Oldham County Code Enforcement Board meeting for August the 7th. The first business is the approval of the minutes from May 1.
Move the minutes be approved as presented.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the minutes to be approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, we'll turn the floor over to you.
Sworn in?
Sorry.
Are they test?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board is true and accurate to the best of your belief and knowledge, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. The first case is citation 521. The address is 3602 River Ridge Cove up in Prospect, 40059. The owner is Steve and Melissa Ritchie that reside at that address. Hearing was not requested. The violations is the Oldham County zoning 250-170 swimming pools, hot tubs, hydro spas. Number 2 that states in part shall be completely enclosed by a fence, wall, or an equivalent barrier of a minimum height of 48 inches. On April 26th of this year, I was informed by our chief building inspector, Mark Tice, that a building permit had been issued on October 19th of 2016 for the purpose of constructing a swimming pool. And as of the April 26th date, the permit was still open and in need of final inspection. A courtesy letter was generated and sent to the owner of record requesting that they contact Mr. Tice and arrange the needed inspections. There's a copy of the pool permit, and they're really hard to see, to shrink them down to get them on there. And on the right is the actual landscape plan, and I've outlined in the highlighter where the fence was supposed to have been put in at. And there's a copy of the letter that was sent to the owners. On May 16th, I was notified that Mr. Tice had not been contacted. And I did a site visit, but I wasn't able to find where the fencing had been installed. Took photographs and issued a notice of violation. And according to their landscape plan, the fence was supposed to come off of, and the photo to the left, supposed to come off the side of the house, right past those last 3 pillars. And then on the photo on the right, it was supposed to come off the back corner of the house. On June 27th, a follow-up visit was conducted, found no progress had been made in putting up the fence. Some more photographs were taken, and citation 521 was issued via certified mail, and a copy of the citation was secured to the front of the residence. And there's the photos, still no fence, and the citation posted. On July 1st, Mr. Ritchie emailed me a copy of the proposal from the Rates Fence Company. Stated that he was expecting construction to begin by the middle of July. And there was a copy of the paperwork he got from the fence company. On July 24th, he contacted me stating that the Homeowners Association did not approve his fence design, and he basically had to go back to the drawing board for a new fence. On August 3rd, he got back with me and said he'd received approval for another fence design, and he got the quote from the fence contractor, and they were scheduled to begin construction on the 15th of this month. And there's the, I don't know, the bid or the contract, whatever you want to call it, for the second one. I did do a follow-up visit today, earlier this morning, just to be sure, and they hadn't started construction yet, so, and there's photos from this morning. At this point in time, I'd request that y'all consider just carrying this case over to the next board meeting, so that way it'll give him time to, for the contractors to get it in. If they're gonna start the 15th, it'll be done by the next one way or the other, so.
Is there a respondent here today? There's no one
No,
here? Okay.
no.
Okay, well, I'll move to table this case until next month.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye to table.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, the second case was citation number 522, and that was for the reserves, the development of the reserves of Deerfield, Section 2. The developer is Pulte Group. That number address they moved, still got it as 100354 Forest Green Boulevard. I think they moved down a building. I just don't have the updated one yet. A hearing was not requested. The violations are KOC 05-830-326, construction site runoff, Section 7, perimeter control plan, states in part, shall secure the perimeter prior to any land disturbance to decrease off-site sedimentation once construction begins. And I've got Jim Silliman, county engineer, Derek Shade, staff engineer, here to walk us through it, because they're the ones that did the inspections and all. Come on up.
On May 31st, I went out to the reserves of Deerfield. Oh, I'm sorry. Jim Silliman, County Engineer, 100 West Jefferson. Again, on May 31st, as noted, I went out to the site. It was actually to check on an alternate filter, inlet filter that the developer had asked to use, and while there, observed several deficiencies in the erosion control measures that were applied to the site. So at that point, I came back and issued a limited stormwater inspection and notice of violation. And when I say limited, it was because I went to a small area of the site, observed the deficiencies, and decided I didn't need to go look at the whole site. We could work on that and ask the developer to address the entire site from that. So that's where subsequently the notice of violation was issued. A copy of the notice. And these are some of the measures that I was talking about. You've got the filter, inlet filter that was required significant amount of maintenance. It's kind of hard to see. There
Is
was
the picture on the left or the right?
that is on the right. Thank you.
Okay, is that near that catch basin?
That is correct. It's
Okay.
on the catch basin.
On top of
It's
the catch basin?
It's like a straw fiber or
Right.
a fiber mat, and it's got a lot of silt buildup around it, silt built up in it, needs to be cleaned. There's another, on
That's
the
very
left
picture.
is the same thing. You can see it's coming apart, requires maintenance. On the right the picture, you can see silt fence that's just overburdened. The silt is built up to the very top of it. It's spilling over and leaving the site. So again, those are just a few of the items we observed and felt that we would issue the notice of violation and get them to come out and address all the issues. After that, we typically wait around 2 weeks to come back and give them an opportunity to address the site. It allows time for rain when they can't work, and just to get the work done, scheduling crews. So on July 11th, Alan Bond, our engineering technician in the engineering department, went out and conducted a second inspection and noticed that some of the deficiencies still remained. Again, so you can see on the outlet of this pipe, you can see a lot of the silt that had left the site and was going downstream. Again, you see the overburdened silt fence on the right. This is just a construction entrance that is being tracked out. Actually, the photo on the right is something we need to address in construction. There's a driveway built with a curb inlet in the back of it. So throughout the time period, we don't have this listed, but between May 31st and the date of the actual citation that was issued on July 12th, there was a significant amount of rain, and we were coordinating with Mr. Hempel, who's with Pulte Group. He came into our office a couple times, and Derek Shade and Alan went on the site several times because there was a resident that owns a home near where all the water comes to, and he was sending us pictures daily as the rain was overburdening his yard. And so while that was happening, he was copying Mr. Hempel on those too. So we were all communicating together at the time. So that's why there weren't any subsequent notices of violations issued during that time, because we were working with the developer to see if this could get resolved. However, on July 11th, we did go out, or July 11th and 12th, went out, and several of the issues that we had talked about with Mr. Hempel had been addressed, and I'll say they were addressed very well. However, it was a very small location, and we felt that while all this attention was being paid to this small location, the rest of the site was left to lack of maintenance. And so that's when we felt a citation needed to be issued. On the 24th of July, Mr. Shade went back out and conducted a follow-up visit. He noted there were still some measures that were deficient, so he issued that notice of a violation. It was not a notice of compliance yet. That's the notice of deficiency. Again, here's some of the, we've got those fiber inlet protections on the left, and you can see they still just require a lot of maintenance. They're clogged up and not covering the inlet. Still, you can see the silt. There were some stone bags at the head wall that needed to be removed because they were providing no capacity. They were covered with silt. Last Friday or last Thursday, Mr. Hempel informed me that they were having their subcontractor, Humbert, take care of all the issues that were remaining on site. And so we wanted to go out and do a site visit before today's meeting. And so Mr. Shade went out yesterday, August 6th, and found that the site had now been brought into compliance. So as of today, we feel it's compliant. That's the notice of compliance that was issued this morning. And you can see, I hope you can see in this picture, the brown tan area is actually straw matting.
Yeah.
So it's stabilized that whole area. The outlet head wall's been cleaned up. On the right picture, you can see where these called straw wattle. It's a straw tube used for erosion control, has been placed in this ditch line. It's actually staggered throughout the ditch line, so it's a good measure there. On the left, you can see a double row of silt fence. And on the right's one of those measures I mentioned earlier where the developer was focusing on a couple areas to address some of these stormwater issues. This is one of the measures they put in place, again, to try and address the volume of water that's coming through there. So just a kind of summary, these are the dates of the actual, well, some of the site visits. May 31st was my initial visit. July 11th would be a subsequent visit, and that was the one that resulted in the citation. July 24th, when we went back and found that it was still deficient, and then August 6th would be the last one when we found the compliance.
You have any recommendations on what you'd like to see out of this board at this time? They're in compliance now,
They're in
so
compliance
everything's
now.
brought into compliance.
That's
I
correct.
mean, we got a couple ways we can approach it. We can find the violation and,
Right. Our thought was to recommend a fine to go along with the ordinance. As I understand it, the ordinance written, there's a range of $10 to $75 per day. We recommend going somewhere in the middle of that, $50. And then base that $50 per day, apply it to the time only from the actual citation date, not that first visit, but the citation date of July 11th.
July the 11th.
Right, until it was brought into compliance, and we've got that for yesterday. That's 25 days. So 25 days at $50 a day is $1,250. So that would be our recommendation for a fine.
Does the board have any other questions? Okay. Are you ready to talk about a motion?
Thank you. We'll go ahead and proceed.
Well, you have people here that might want to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next.
Raise your right hand, please, sir.
Which one's my right?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is true and accurate to your best belief and knowledge?
Yes, it is.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dan Hempel. My address is 10350 Ormsby Park Place, Suite 103, Louisville, Kentucky, 40223. I am the land manager for Pulte Homes. I oversee all their developments in this market, which encompasses Jefferson, Oldham, and Shelby counties. And I did initially call Jim. We were having some drainage issues out there that was affecting one property owner, so I had contacted Jim about trying some different erosion control measures that weren't approved on their approved list of items to use. And I guess that's what precipitated him going out there. Because, like I said, we were having drainage problems from one homeowner. He was on the lowest part of the property and everything drained to him. So we were trying to address his issues and get the stuff that we were using wasn't particularly working because what was happening, we were getting these heavy rains, and it seems like anymore we don't get a light rain. It's a downpour that lasts 10, 20 minutes, but it dumps a bunch of water, and they were just inundating the erosion control. And actually the sill fence and the mats, they aren't designed for that type of rain events. So I had contacted Jim about trying to use some of these different measures, or maybe propose that they had anything that they thought maybe we could try. So that's what precipitated everything. Excuse me. So we were making these changes, and we do realize that there may have been other areas of the site, but we were concentrating on this one area, and then that's how I directed my Humbert to work on this one area and then expand out, because I had walked the site with them, and we had pointed out we had a list of stuff that we needed corrected, and they were in the process of making those corrections. So it's not like we were avoiding making the corrections. We were starting at one area, and due to the sheer size of Deerfields, it's 60 lots, over probably 20 acres. I mean, so it just takes time in order to get all the repairs completed in a timely manner. And then you throw in, 4 or 5 rain events on top of that, then sometimes you're basically starting from scratch again because it inundates what they had fixed. And then that's why it just took us a little bit longer than what we had anticipated. But, Pulte takes very seriously erosion control. We do weekly inspections on all of our sites. We inspect after every half inch of rain. We do another inspection, so we do take this very, very seriously. So I would ask that, I know Jim had recommended a $1,250 fine, but I think that he would even tell you that I've met with him and Derek multiple occasions on this site and other sites that we have currently going on. And when they call me, we respond. We may not get it done immediately, but we are responding to that.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is true and accurate to the best of your belief and knowledge.
I do.
Name and address, please.
Ken Bryant, Bryant. I'm the owner of Humbert Erosion Control. My address is 3936 Stony Run Drive, Louisville, Kentucky, 40220. I'd just like to reinforce what Dan said on, that they do take this very seriously. Above any we do 90% of the erosion control work in the surrounding counties of Jefferson County for builders, 90% of them. We do on nearly all the larger tract builders, and they by far are the most proactive. During this period of time, there was, in May and in June, there was 5 rain events over a half inch, some of them 1.5 inches. That doesn't count any rain event that wasn't less than a half inch, because there was several of those as well. We just don't, we don't keep a record of those because half inch triggers another inspection. Some of the areas that they're asking us to do work in, if we put our heavier equipment in these areas, you'd create more damage to the lots. Some of these some folks have had sodded lots. So you have to kind of wait till some of this stuff dries. And when it's raining, it seems like, and I'm sure you all have seen it raining, every 5-6 days, it takes a little time. Of the 3 weeks that we were in there, we were in there nearly every day, except for Sundays, doing something. Gentleman at the bottom, at the hill that Dan mentioned, we focused on that, the biggest, because that was a reactive situation. He moved in, he's got a lot of runoff, he's at the bottom of the hill, and you have all this acreage above it, and it's running like a raging river coming down the streets, down the sides. We've put reinforced silt fence in where normally regular silt fence would be, which is a metal wire and post at every corner. The biggest thing we have done is reestablished the open lots with stabilization, straw stabilization. There's various ways to do that. We have a machine that can blow it. In some areas that's okay, because they're a little flatter. But the areas that really were to address first, where this gentleman was having most of the damage done to his yard, we had to handshake it. So that was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe about 8, 9, maybe 10 acres. You got to physically handshake. You say, well, why didn't you blow it? Well, given the volume of water that's coming down that slope, you'd like to use different practices where you can. It's obviously more efficient to blow it on there. It's easier for us, and it's more efficient. However, a lot of times especially when you get an 1.5 inch rain event, the volume of water comes down, or usually large winds come in with that. When you're chopping this up and blowing this straw, it's minute. It's minute. So when you handshake it, it has a lot more body to it, let's say. It does take a lot longer. What you got to think of is every time a raindrop hits sediment that's not protected, it's a mini explosion. So every time it hits, dirt particles are moving away from where it hit. Now, for every second, hundreds of thousands of those drops are hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting. So if you put a heavier barrier straw, then every time it hits it, it's hitting the straw and breaking up. So you're not having these ruts. And a lot of times I'm sure in your yards you've seen where you get ruts. So we're trying to slow that down and break it up. That just takes a lot of time. It's just a real time, and we're actually still blowing straw on the other side of the development's a little flatter. So that obviously just takes a lot of time. Some of the issues on the pictures there, I will politely disagree with some of those. There was never any off-site on that property. It never got off the site. Where he's showing the riprap, the large rocks that were coming out the back of the retention pond, the whole purpose of that riprap is to collect that sediment so it doesn't get off there. You're slowing it down so it ruts out and thins out so it doesn't get off the site. So there's always going to be, on that retention pond, there's always going to be some dirt stain where sediment was trying to get off but couldn't leach its way all the way out. That's part of the design of it's a detention pond. We want to keep it there if at all possible. We did try to do, in some areas, in the gentleman's house down there, Dan had an idea of trying to get as much of that water inside the catch basins as possible coming down the left side of the development, and it was running in front of this house. So what we try to do is open up the grate a little larger and divert it with straw wattles coming down that slope where it would run right into the catch basin to get to the detention pond, so it wouldn't run down the street and get in front of his house. So it was an effort, and I think we worked with them on that to make sure that they knew what was going on. As far as the inlet protection, the fiber inlet protection, it is approved by MSD in Jefferson County. A lot of what you all do here in Oldham County is directly related to the help that MSD has given you all and the feedback. Your inspection paperwork is almost identical to the inspection paper work that you have here. They have approved it for very reasons. They want water. They would rather the water get in this as clean water gets above the fiber, get in there. Is it a maintenance issue? It's clearly more of a maintenance issue than some of the other inlet protections that we use. But we found that there's less ponding. I'm sure you've probably heard stories where folks get in the bottom of these new developments and they get ponding and they get their car in there and they get mud and dirt and dragging through there. So we're trying to balance the need of the environment with the folks that are living in these developments. Could we clean it more often? And can we maintain it more often? Probably. But we had 5 over half-inch rain events, probably another 5 that weren't half-inch rain events. And that simply is just a whisk broom to try to clean the sediment off there and then scoop that up. So that's an area we're addressing inside our organization just for Oldham County. And again, some of those areas where the straw wattle we're putting in instead of rock bags, that was something, I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was added at one point. I may be wrong on that, but I don't recall seeing that in the first blush of this. So we had to wait till some of the ground dried to get our equipment in there because the original land developer had put rock bags in there. The rock bags, over time, it's a polyurethane bag. Over time, it dries out. The rocks break loose, and it's just rock right there. We went in originally, put some smaller wattles in there, just in front of those or back of those rocks, because what we're trying to do down that slope is again slow the volume of water coming down there to a trickle as it's going to any discharge point in the facility. The discharge points are where water or erosion can get off the site. We've got various areas where we have sediment areas where we collect that information, sediment and try to remove it after it gets to a certain level. All I would say is, I mean, we're in there every day. It does slow the process when you have this many rain events. Obviously, last year was a record rain event, and we're on track to break the rain for this year, last year's total rain. So that's all. I just wanted to make sure, everybody had the same perspective when you're out there dealing with it and it's raining. It just slow the process, and we have been in there for 3 straight weeks working on it. So we're getting close to having everything stabilized. The issues that they had mentioned, we have addressed all those. Those are the things that were on the priority list to get those done. The faster we can get things growing in this development, the quicker it will slow. You're always going to have some water at the bottom. It's got to go somewhere. It's a matter of gravity. There's going to be some water there. We just want to make sure that it's not brown water. Questions?
These rain events you speak of happened in the month of June, correct? I mean, it looks like the first inspection that the county engineer made was May 31st. So this took place during the month of June, the rain events and the failure of.
I believe there was 3 in that time frame. May 30th, the 6th, and the 17th. That doesn't count. That's half-inch rain events. There were more rain events than that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
There was more. I'm
There was
well aware of
2 of
that.
those were over 1.5 inches in a matter of an hour. It's 1.5 inches rain, and it's a lot of rain. You could build retaining walls. It's not. You're not going to stop that much water coming down that fast. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Hempel, could you come back up, please? I have a question on what is your plan going forward? You
Well, we
said that
do-
you instituted some policies. Were they instituted before this happened?
No, we do
or they do
weekly,
now?
we do weekly inspections every week. So I don't know if it's Tuesday or Wednesday, Humber comes out there and walks the site. They do an inspection not only for Oldham County, we do an internal inspection for Pulte on ourselves that we have to do. I have to maintain records because we do get audited by outside auditors. So we're just making sure that the inspection, that everything's getting looked at, and then that the work, if there is something that's noted on that inspection, that it does get taken care of in a timely manner. But they usually have, like if they do an inspection on Tuesday, under normal circumstances, by Friday or Saturday, most of the repairs are done, if they're just general repairs. If there's something that is major and it takes a little bit longer, it could be into the next week. So we're just making sure we do a better job of, talking between myself and Ken and his guys and making sure that everybody is, aware of what's going on, not only on this site, but on all of our sites in Oldham County that we have going on everywhere, so.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any
Any questions of anybody?
any respondents from you, Jim? Yes.
Darrell, put the PowerPoint back up and leave it on just in case they need.
Sorry, I shouldn't have shut it down. That's me.
I have a question while you're doing that.
Sure.
So your office makes regular inspections, but when you feel the need to issue a citation, your office does not issue the citations, it's the code
That's
enforcement
correct.
officer
At
does
that point, that's when we ask for Darrell's assistant, because we don't do that, right. So what I wanted to respond to is, and I agree, we were talking about that mid-June period, and that was when the homeowner was getting pounded by rain, for lack of a better term. It was mid-June, there was a lot of rain, several rain events. And I don't, Darrell, did you have pictures of that lot in there, or? I don't remember if we had that. Well, but nonetheless, yes, in that mid-June period. And that's why between the May 31st and the July 11th, we had been working with Dan, understanding that there was a lot going on and they were addressing them. But at a point towards the end of June was when it did start to dry up, and we went out, and again, we found these items that were just in a state that we found inexcusable. And that they're, while you are focusing on a big area that was a problem area, that there are these measures that can be replaced real quickly, cleaned or replaced real quickly, and then when you fill out your report weekly, you can say you've done it, and it's done. So that was the point, again, at which we did observe there was a dry period. It should have been taken care of. We decided to issue the citation. Also, as far as there is that riprap area that he was talking about that can catch some of the silt. One of the reasons that I originally issued the notice of violation in May 31st is because the silt had traveled beyond that. I observed the straw.
Left the site.
It had left that riprap area. So that's when we felt, because a lot of times we'll issue what's called a notice of deficiency versus a notice of violation. Notice of deficiency means that we've observed there are measures that are not in place properly, but the silt has not left the site. So we just want you to fix those deficiencies. Typically, when we issue a notice of violation, it's because there's more impact. And in this case, I did observe the silt leaving that riprap area, and that's why we went this measure. So I just wanted to clear that up. Yeah.
You have to come back up.
Back up.
I would agree that there was straw past that. I would disagree that there was sediment.
I don't have all
And
the
this is-
pictures, but
But this is a perfect example. Yes, that right there, that silt fence, we should dig that out. But what else do you see there?
you want to tell me what you're looking for?
Well, this has 3 barriers of protection. It has a regular silt fence, it has a riprap to collect it, and it has a reinforced silt fence behind it. So if one fails, which this obviously failed,
Right.
we have 2 other protections, so that won't get off.
Right. But in the case, the riprap pad downstream of the detention basin.
This isn't, I don't believe this is.
This one's not it.
Right,
But
yeah.
one of the reasons for going ahead and issuing the violation was because the pad downstream of the detention basin, that's the last point of discharge before it's leaving the site.
We had a picture of that.
There was silt, and I don't know if the picture captured the,
Well, there's silt on the apron. There's gonna be silt on the apron
no,
every
but
time
it
it rains.
had,
yeah.
it had left. We've
And
got
there's-
other
and it's in the
pictures.
riprap. There's another
was there?
picture that
Okay.
shows it, yeah.
Yeah, there's another picture there.
Somewhere, there,
There,
right there,
yeah.
right there, right there.
Either, right. So, I mean, you can see,
I can see where the sediment
The
ends
sediment-
and
well,
straws on the floor.
it ends
I mean, we
at
could
the-
argue.
right.
I
but there
would
was
just-
silt. I
just
mean, if
disagree,
it's
but
right
fine.
at the very boundary,
Yeah,
do you think it's not beyond that?
I don't know.
Or do you think it just stopped at the end? I'm just saying that it had left, and that was the reason
It's
for the
possible,
violation.
it's possible.
I'm not gonna, I don't wanna get up there and discourage Jim, I mean, but I guess my point is, the whole thing is, I feel that we were being attentive, that as soon as Jim notified me, and Derek, we do take, like I said, do take this very seriously, and we were out there trying to remedy the situation. It just took longer than what we had anticipated. So, I mean, that's, and, you know, like I said, I've got a good relationship with Jim in Oldham County's office and with the planning commission, and any one of them will tell you that when they call me, we do respond, so.
That's true.
Thank you.
Okay.
What are the barriers rated at
You should
as far as rainfall?
turn your
Turn your
mic
mic.
on.
I don't have what the,
The barriers as far as, like silt fence,
How much rainfall were they rated?
well, they're
to?
only designed for, I think it's a 10-year storm, which is not
What storm?
A 10-year.
10-year storm, which is not a whole lot of rain. But so the problem is the rains we've been having lately, you're getting a large amount of rain in a short time frame. And when you got 4 or 5 acres that are above you and it rains, an inch and a half in 10 minutes, that's a lot of water coming down to one point, and it just can't handle it. But our subdivision was approved by Oldham County. It's designed to their standards.
Well, I have a question for both of you.
Uh-huh.
We hear a lot about heavier rains than what we're historically used to. And of course, engineers can only design on the data that they have from the past. We can't anticipate what's going to happen in the future. Do you feel that the erosion control measures that were used in this project were not sufficiently designed to handle those volumes of rain that came down on those days?
That's possible because of the volumes that came down in that June. Some of my concerns, again, were not the immediate failures or the immediate deficiencies. It was the lack of maintenance afterwards. If you see some of those straw mats, again, it should be easy to go in and replace those.
And I can't,
and
and
so
I
that's
cannot disagree with that. There are some areas that,
right.
and it's, like I said, Deerfields is a very large site, and sometimes I know when, you know, they're out there working, you know, he's directing his guys what to do. Well, he's not out, he may not be out there the whole time they're there. And it's very easy, you know, there's so many inlets out there that you may miss a couple. I'm not denying that at all. But we are trying to do a better job of making sure that, you know, I go out there at least twice a week. I know he's out there at least once a week. And then,
I wish it was once a week.
so, okay. Lately, it's been more than once a week. But you know, I drive I've got 14 sites that I drive at least 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes I'm at every site every day. And as I notice stuff, and Ken can attest to this, I'll call him up or text him and say, hey, take a picture of it. This needs to get addressed. If I think it's an area that we are going outside of what Oldham County is approved on the construction plans, I'll give Jim a call and say, hey, we're having issues here. Can we try this? And they've been very accommodating. So I can't say, you know, very open to trying new things on a test base, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but unless you try it, we know what was there wasn't working, so let's see what else we can do and see if it works. And by doing that, we're learning something, and hopefully they're learning something as well. You know, this works, this doesn't work, because Pulte's a big company. You know, we're in 37 states, so, and I'll call my counterparts in different states and say, what are you guys doing? And what can we maybe bring down here to try to use that you guys are using, you know, up in Minnesota or Tennessee or someplace like that, and see if they'll work, because you really got to look at the terrain. You know,
Sure.
Indianapolis isn't going to be the same as Kentucky. It's a lot
Right.
flatter, but you know, Nashville, Minneapolis has some rolling ground, so you know, there's some different stuff that we've looked into that we're looking to bring down here and try on a test basis, just to see if it'll work. Because erosion control the erosion control that's designed on the construction plans is basically there to protect the site during land development. As you start building houses, they set a house, the grade changes a little bit, so it may not work. So you may have to go in there, okay, now that this house is here, the drainage is reacting in a different way than what we thought it was going to be. It's a big guess. I mean, in all honesty, it's a guess. So then you got to go back and say, okay, what do we need to do to solve the issue? But it may not be what was approved or what was shown on the construction plans, because it's an ever evolving thing. Some things work, sometimes. And then if you go out there, you'll see. Like before we get into the detention basin, there's a ditch that goes down there, and we've got multiple rows of silt fence trying to slow down the water, where originally when we had it, we had one row at the bottom. Well, it wasn't working, so we went on and added more rows. Or maybe you change the regular silt fence out to reinforced silt fence. Something that
Rip wrap in there as well.
put riprap, we'll do straw wattles, anything to, you know, and a lot of it's just, it really depends on how much rain you're getting. So. But like I said, I think that, you know, Pulte has a really good relationship with Oldham County, and, you know, we're very attentive, and when they ask for something,
And we're not trying to ruin that relationship.
No,
We're just trying
no.
we
No,
observed it, and again.
he beat me up out here outside. No, but Jim's
And we
great.
agree that
Yeah.
I've referred to it as erosion control plans, it's a living document. Like I said, as it changes, we address it. But the reason we brought this to where it is because some of the maintenance issues we
Yeah,
felt were not being
and I can't
addressed.
disagree with
So-
the maintenance issue. My thing was just that due to the size of the site, it just took us a while to get everything up to where we needed it to be. And that's what I'm asking you know, I realize that there's gonna be a fine, but I don't think that $1,250 is the right fine, in my mind, but I do realize there's gonna be a fine, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Both.
certainly.
Thank you. Does the board have any other questions before we go into discussion?
Yeah, we ought to have a little discussion, I would assume. If anybody else wants to weigh in on it, there's a lot to consider. Any other members have any comments?
Well, once the water leaves the detention or retention basin, the silt is already, that you show accumulated in the riprap, it's already left the site when it goes past that culvert, right? I mean, it's already,
Who are you
the
addressing?
erosion control measures already failed.
Let me,
Well, the riprap
let me just, for
technically is-
point of order, Madam Chairman, just who are you asking? And really, are you going to rely on your county engineer to answer those questions, or the applicant? I just think, just figure out
More or
who it
less a
is.
statement, in my opinion.
Right,
That's, it would seem to me that the retention, by the time the water comes out of the retention basin, it should be pretty clear. Because it's meant to slow it down, the silt's supposed to drop out in the retention basin or detention basin and flow out the culvert.
Well, are you asking your county engineer that, or is that,
Is that right, Jim? That's my impression.
That would be ideal, yes. In working with the contractor and understanding these heavy rains, I'm willing to observe that if it does get into that riprap, that's kind of a buffer. Again, ideally, it wouldn't even get into that. We'd have a sediment basin upstream and it'd be capturing. You know, maybe this is a safety measure here, but once it does show that it's really getting to that edge, and that's where we have to be concerned. And again, I think that because we do see that it's right on that edge, it's obviously leaving at that point. So.
Thank you. Any other questions for the board?
I have a question on the
Okay, but
riprap.
please address who's
I'm
the
sorry?
question, who's the
To
question
Jim?
to?
It's Mr. Stone,
and make sure your microphone is on and you speak
It
into the
is,
microphone?
yes.
Great.
On the riprap here, the flow is towards the top of the.
That's
picture.
correct. That's correct.
And in regards to where this basin is, to the riprap?
The basin would be, well, the outlet pipe would be on the bottom of the screen, and then the basin would be further
So
down.
the silt that we see in the bottom of the
Has left
photograph?
the basin, correct. And the basin should be designed as a
That's
sediment.
the outflow of the basin.
That's correct, that's correct.
And where does that head wall fit into this? Is that part of this, is that the inlet to the basin, that head
That's-
wall?
Derek, remind me that, Okay,
I
sorry.
can answer that one. This is, there's a larger head wall where it's leaving this
Okay, yeah, I see
riprap.
the concrete.
This head wall on the left side here, this is on the far
That's in another
north.
site?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
way, it's at the very top of the development.
Okay. So there's a structure there at the bottom of the picture of the riprap. There's a structure which is the outflow of the
that's
retention
correct.
basin.
That's a wing wall of the outflow. Right, of the development, correct.
Okay.
So really, I mean, the focus should be on the right picture, if I think that's what you're getting at. But as Mr. Kaiser pointed out, the sedimentation and the dropout should be happening upstream of that,
Yes.
ideally. Right.
Can we also say that it wasn't remedied in a timely fashion? Once they saw it, it wasn't,
Well, and again, that was my concern, and that was why we did move forward with the actions we did, the violations and I'm sorry, get him on the microphone. Yes, that's why we moved forward with that, because there had been more than a week span. Again, like they said, typically the time frame that they have to, I mean, by the plan that's on the plans, the phasing is after, every week it's inspected or after that half-inch or greater rain. So when we see over a week of dry weather and you still have those inlet protections that are needing maintenance, then that signals to us that we need to step in.
so we are not in compliance then?
What's that?
We are not in compliance with the...
That's correct. That's correct.
Mr. Himpel, did you have a response to
Well, the
close?
only thing I was gonna say was on the sediment basin, right now, it's the future of that, it's a detention basin, but we are currently using it as a sediment detention basin. On the outlet side of that, before it leaves our site or leaves the detention basin, there are three, at the very bottom of the pipe, the inlet structure or the outlet structure, there's two or three pipes, are like 4 inches in diameter. So those are used during a normal rainfall. Then there's a notch halfway up. Then during a heavy rain event, when that basin does fill up, it overflows to let water in. Above that, at the very top, there's another inlet. And then the final thing, once it gets above that, there is a riprap weir on the right-hand side. So if it does overtop that,
Overflow.
it's gonna overflow it. And you get that heavy of a rain, and I have seen that basin up over top of that since we've been out there. But if it gets up over to that point, there is a possibility that it is gonna let sediment through that basin. It's not gonna keep every bit of it.
Okay, Jim, before you sit down, you get to say one more word.
Okay.
If you have anything to say.
No, I think we've covered it all.
Okay, all right, we're now closing it. Now we're going to have board discussion and moving forward.
Well, he's not in compliance, so
I'm sorry?
they're not in compliance, so that more or less,
Yeah, they are at this
We're
point.
not in compliance at
They are
the
now.
top, but they are now. Is that what's correct?
Well, I'll go ahead and start, and I'll qualify this. Well, we'll go on with procedural matters first, and then when we get to the violation, we'll have another discussion. So I'll move to find that the citation was properly issued on June the 12th, 2019, to the Pulte Group, who is the owner of the property, and notice of hearing was given to the respondent at the same time. That concludes my motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that the citation was properly issued to Pulte on June the 12th, and the owner of the owner of the property was given that citation. Do I have a second?
second,
Second it, please. Okay, we have a second. For all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carried.
And as far as the ordinance here, I just need clarification from the code enforcement officer. This is a zoning or other violation? Is this a zoning ordinance violation, the stormwater?
Carol, put up that slide that shows which one it is, because you had it listed up there so you can see the ordinance number.
KOC 05-830-326.
So that is a
Okay.
county ordinance related to construction site runoff.
Right.
That's a county ordinance.
Correct.
So we'll title that under other.
Correct.
All right, so, under other code violations, I move to find that stormwater ordinance 05-830-26, site construction runoff, the violation was made and, observed on the dates as given in the citation, which would be July the 12th.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Board Member Steve Moss that we find a violation of the county ordinance, KOC 05-830-326, and was observed by the officer on or about the following dates of July the 12th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. I'm going to take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries.
Okay, so moving to the remedial order and the penalty, I would offer a little discussion first. While I'm as well aware of the issues that you described as the rainfalls, because I'm a developer myself, so I have a lot of sympathy for you fighting that, but I do support my county engineer. I would like to and say in the remedial order, that the terms of the remedial order are that the Pulte Group will improve its maintenance of its erosion control measures as prescribed by the county engineer in this meeting on a continuing basis.
Okay, the terms of the remedial order is we have, that Board Member Moss has put out as Pulte will maintain the maintenance of erosion as determined by the county engineer, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, control measures, excuse me.
Yeah, erosion control
Control
measures.
measures, I'm sorry. Okay, I have this on the floor. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries.
And also, as far as a civil fine, I do understand that the rain events that we've had were extreme. I've had to deal with them myself, and it is very difficult when there's mud everywhere to get equipment in there and make repairs. It's a losing battle. So I would reduce the fine from the recommended amount to $1,000.
So you want to have a per-day cost at the number of days. You can't just be arbitrary in the amount you're picking.
So we need to specify.
How did you arrive at that number?
So when we were,
Your regulation says there's a range,
okay.
and you got to stay within that range, and it's,
Okay.
The-
Well, then, okay, I got you, I see what you're saying. Then I'll make a motion to assess a civil fine at $40 per day for the 25 days.
Have some discussion?
I'm sorry?
So can we
Is this a
discuss?
That's my motion. You can, you certainly can either discuss or
well, you
amend.
either
I have
second,
to have a second, then we can discuss.
either second, or it dies from a lack of a second, or before you discuss.
Okay, is there a second on the floor?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second, so now you can have discussion.
Yes. No, I support the county engineer too, and but it's my opinion that considering everything, they were responsive from the time that the citation was issued on July the 12th. It's been less than 30 days, and they're in substantial compliance. And that's in keeping with most of the cases that we hear, that we give them if they, respond. In that period of time, typically, we haven't levied any fines.
Well,
You can make a recommendation
Okay.
to amend the motion if you'd like.
Okay?
Can I jump in here? Darrell, would you put up the notice of violation dates? There was, there were notices of violation given before the citation was written.
By the Office of the County Engineer.
Correct. So it's not just the date of the citation, it's what it
Understand.
took to get to that citation, as an example.
So excuse me, may I? So this was prior to the rain events?
Well, you
The
gotta,
date, is
you
there?
gotta
no.
decide whether you
no.
want to open the
You have to
floor or
decide, you
just.
have to open,
Oh, we're not open for
no,
discussion?
I can open the floor back up. Go right ahead.
No, it wasn't.
The floor's now open.
May 31st, it was not, it's not, it's prior.
May 31st is prior to those mid-June rain events that we were talking about, that the neighbor was asking about, but it had been raining all early
Yeah,
spring.
May
so-
and June was a wet.
But the rain events we were specifically talking about, it was before those, yes.
So the improper installation or maintenance of the inlet filters, the lack of silt fence maintenance were prior to the rain events in June?
It was prior to the rain events that we were discussing that were those specific
difficult.
ones. But it had been raining we had continued another heavy rain season
The
prior to
inlet
that.
The inlet filters, are they designed to be cleaned or replaced?
Either.
How much are they?
I don't know the cost.
That's not for us to, thank you.
I'm sorry,
No,
the cost of the filters?
no, we're trying to determine, were they in compliance at the time? And we know they were not. Where are we now? So we have a motion on the floor. You have a question. So right now, we just can't go with the cost of. That's getting beyond where we're supposed to be.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, after these questions, do you want to continue with the motion?
So, well, I've made a motion, and I guess it's up to Ron
Ron
to
to-
make a counter or a request to amend, or whatever the proper procedure would be on that.
I'd like to request that you amend your motion to reduce the fine to 0.
Okay. We have a request on the floor to reduce the fine to 0. On behalf of Ron, I need a second. Do I have a second? Okay, hearing no second, that motion dies. All right,
So procedurally, can I jump in? Matt, are we still at the original motion now? There was a motion to amend, and it died for lack of a second, so we're really considering the original motion.
I think that puts us back with the motion for a $40 per day fine for 25 days.
okay, we had a motion on the floor made by Steve Moss, board member, for $40 per day times 25 days. And what does that come up to? $1,000, okay, thank you. And we had a second?
Second.
By Mr. Allen, okay. And for a floor vote, all in favor say aye.
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 And opposed, nay? Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
And that's all I have.
Okay.
No.
Have any no business? Okay, all right. All right, then at this point in time, we will call the Oldham County Code Enforcement meeting closed.